Hello again, everybody. This is Stan Scott with Foggy Bottom Line Media.
And this is Scott Konopasek.
And today we're doing I think it's the 11th, 10th or 11th. I'm losing track of how many of these we've done now. So we're going to start putting dates on them. We're recording this on October 22nd for publication this week. And today, Scott and I, we're going to talk about the No Kings rallies over the weekend. We both attended one. These were organized by basically two groups, I think. One is the Indivisibles, and I attended the Williamsburg, James City County Indivisible event. And some were organized by a group called No Kings. So I think they were kind of working together on that. Scott, you went to the one in Richmond, right?
Yeah. My son Seth and I went to the one here in Richmond. We met at the Capitol building and marched through downtown, about a mile and a quarter route. About 20 plus thousand people there. It was very, very impressive.
Wow, 20,000 plus. I think we estimated around 6K in Williamsburg. And we rallied at the Williamsburg James City County Courthouse, which is right across the road from on Monticello Avenue. It's right across the road from a big shopping development. And I think the organizers chose that space because there's a lot of traffic. So a lot of people would see us, and the rally goers, the protesters, basically formed up along Monticello Avenue, about a quarter mile in each direction, so pretty good distance, and then rallied on the lawn outside of the courthouse. And there's a terrace, kind of a walled terrace there, where the speaker stood. And if you look on the YouTube channel, you'll see my very brief remarks that I made at the rally. And Scott, the Richmond version was in Capitol Square, right? Before the march
Right,
started.
right. We started at Capitol Square, right at the base of the Capitol building, and gathered up there, had speeches and a little rally, and then we proceeded out of the park and down the streets. I'm wearing a hat that I wore during the during the march, and I have this flag behind me. I carried this flag with me, although I had the stars in the distress position, which is stars down and stripes up.
Right. Yeah.
There were several others that had the flag in the same position, but it was really an exciting and positive day experience to be out there. I think it warmed my heart to see so many other people who were concerned about the direction of the country, and concerned enough that they canceled their brunch plans, they canceled their football watching plans, and they showed up on a beautiful fall day to walk through town. Despite the fact that the governor the night before announced that he put the National Guard on call and had them in an armory nearby, uh, for whatever reason he thought he might need to do that.
Well, we're Scott and I we're going to dig into the sort of MAGA reaction to these marches and their sort of pre-game for these marches. And one of them was, well, we'll get into that here in a minute, but I think part of the thing was to try to intimidate people into not going, but it sort of had the reverse effect, in my mind. So what kind of folks did you see there? I mean, I guess in Williamsburg, it was a pretty diverse crowd. Honestly, it was mostly white. I saw a lot of Hispanics. I saw at least one young person with a Mexican flag. Didn't see any Palestinian flags. Saw a bunch of Ukraine flags. I saw a lot of young people. I did see some black people. Williamsburg, as many of you may know, is a college town. That's where William and Mary is. So you might expect to see some young people there from coming over from the school. But it was a very diverse crowd. Lots of folks, a lot of women, a lot of women. Scott, the same thing in Richmond, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. The crowd was predominantly white, but it wasn't. I guess you'd say it was probably mostly over 50, but there was a large contingent of young people. And as I looked around to see what other groups other than old white people were there. I did see a good representation of African Americans. I saw some Asian Americans, but I didn't see very many Hispanic folks, and I clearly respect that and understand why they may
Yeah.
not have come. There were the Ukrainian flags. I didn't see any Palestinian flags, but there were Palestinian chants occasionally as we were marching along. But it was a very diverse crowd. Now, we both say that it was predominantly white, but that's the population here in the
True.
part of Virginia where we live.
True.
So it wasn't unrepresentative of the population as
Yeah.
a whole.
That's a good point, and it's an important point to make, I think. So it's all peaceful, right? No real incidents.
Oh, it was like a party atmosphere.
Yeah,
there
yeah,
there
same
were
here.
no incidents. There are so many people in those inflatable chickens
Yeah.
and frog costumes and dinosaurs and hot dogs. It was hilarious. There was I didn't hear any negativity at all. I didn't see any counter protesters. I didn't hear any angry chants on the part of the demonstrators. It was kind of a fun day. In fact, Seth's friends, a young couple with 2 kids in a stroller, were walking next to us the whole time.
Oh.
So it was a family-like environment as well.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I saw a lot of young people, like 20-somethings and 30-somethings, but there were lots of folks that brought their kids. I think we did see one counter protester. There was one MAGA guy. I didn't see it personally, but the organizers mentioned it to me later that this guy was basically confronting some of the folks that were on Monticello Avenue, and the police eventually got involved, but it was more to say, I think they said something like, "You can say anything you want, but stay out of the road."
Right.
Because at this location, it's kind of key to, people are lining the street, and it's a pretty busy street. So it's kind of key to keep people on the sidewalk and out of the street itself. And I think what this guy did that annoyed the police was he was standing in the road yelling at people.
Yeah.
Right. And he eventually left. But other than that, really, again, like you said, Scott, big party atmosphere, a lot of inflatable folks, a lot of really cool signs. Some of them certainly derogatory, basically talking bad about Trump or some of his people, Kash Patel specifically. But none of it was violence, unless you count the 8647 signs, which the right wing will try to say that means that's calling for assassination of Trump. And if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you know that 86 just means we're taking that off the menu, right? Or it's no longer on the menu because we ran out of whatever of the ingredients we need to make it, right? So it's really, I read that, and everyone else should think about this. I read that as more as impeach Donald Trump rather than assassinate him. But they're reaching for straws here. They're looking for some reason, some way to discredit the fact that 7 million people showed up to protest what's going on in this country. There was a lot of anti-fascism signs. I saw a lot of veterans with anti-fascism signs, veterans saying, I signed up to fight this. My father signed up to fight this. My grandfather signed up to fight this. And we're not going to let it go. Did you see a lot of veterans in Richmond too?
Yeah, there was quite a few. In fact, that was my theme as well. I had on a veteran's shirt, the flag, and of course the hat that I had on a minute ago. But one of the things that really impressed me a lot at the demonstration, but also recently in the media, social media, popular culture, is people are embracing the term Antifa and taking away the negative connotation. I saw grandmothers carrying signs saying, this is Grandma's Antifa. And, and I think that that's really powerful for the resistance movement to do is to neutralize that term, because the Republicans going into this had a very conscientious media plan and psyop strategy, I guess, if you will. They started out the week before the demonstration calling it the Hate America rally.
Yeah.
And they said anyone participating is Antifa or Hamas or terrorists, domestic terrorists, and we're all paid to be there, that it was just a paid event. So they were setting that up. So if anything had happened, they already set up the pretext to justify the use of violence.
Right.
But ironically, because it was such a peaceful, joyful event, and they couldn't claim that it was anything otherwise, they ended up gaslighting us by saying, oh, it's just a bunch of senior citizens in their walkers protesting, a bunch of old hippies,
Right.
just, not serious people. So they tried to have it both ways. Beforehand, they painted it out as going to be this violent mob that hates America, is going to do bad things to everyone, till afterwards saying, oh, it's just a bunch of innocent old people. It's nothing. So what's the point? If there really was a king, he wouldn't have allowed them to do this anyway. So a very interesting response on the part of the administration and Republicans generally.
Well, my favorite pushback on the Antifa label is, I think I saw it on Facebook or somewhere. It shows a photograph of the U.S. military cemeteries in Europe.
Uh-huh.
I think it's the one in Belgium, and it says, "We found Antifa headquarters."
I saw one that said Antifa Cemetery.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, and there were a lot of anti-fascist signs. The young man standing right behind me, when at the speaker's spot, had a big sign that said, I'm not getting paid for this. I hate fascists for free. Right. So you saw a lot of signs like that. I didn't get paid. Did you get paid to go? Or
No,
Seth?
I didn't get paid. Maybe I got some blessings in heaven for being there. I hope so.
That's just as good, right? So, but yeah, and the right pushback on this, I've got, like you said, if there was a king, they wouldn't allow you to do this. And of course, no one is saying that we have a king now. The point of these rallies is that we don't want to let Trump become a king, right? And he's working on that. We can go through the litany of stuff he's doing. He's trying to take Congress's power away, to the power of the purse away, by basically, not spending money Congress told him, said to spend, or, appropriated.
Well, I would say they're not trying to. They've already done it. They haven't been stopped. He hasn't been stopped yet.
He hasn't been. Yeah, you're right. Mea culpa. Absolutely true. He's already done this. He's spending money Congress did not authorize, and he's not refusing to spend money Congress did appropriate. This is appropriation of Congress's Article 1 powers under the Constitution, and this is what kings do, right? So he wants to be a king. And in fact, one of his responses to the whole No Kings rally was, did you see I'm sure you saw the AI thing he posted?
The fighter jet. I was going to talk about that. Yeah,
where it says King Trump on the side.
Yeah,
and he's
King
wearing a crown.
And then he bombed the demonstrators with a bunch of excrement. Plane.
This guy hates Americans. He hates us.
Right.
He hates all of us. He hates our principles. He hates our values. He hates everything this country has in the past stood for. And it's really distressing to see this. So I don't know. The response from the right on this is just so closed-minded and so crazy. But these rallies, these basically party atmosphere rallies, they really have a strong effect. It's almost like trolling, the Trump administration,
Yeah,
right?
it is. And for someone who doesn't have a very thick skin, it just really bothers them. And uh, you got Mike Johnson running to his rescue and trying to defend this poor snowflake of a president who just can't take any criticism. On Sunday I went to a family gathering, and I mentioned that Seth and I went to the demonstration in Richmond. An extended family member just totally lost his mind. Uh, just went berserko, dropping f bombs and talking about his own family members in a way that is just absolutely shocking. Um, and it makes you wonder what is it about criticizing a president that makes the president crazy, that makes Republicans in Congress crazy, and makes people who watch Fox News crazy. Although maybe
Well,
that's
they're all
part of the
snowflakes.
answer right there.
No, they're all thin-skinned snowflakes. They can't stand any criticism, and all they push back with is basically middle school insults,
Right.
right? It's like they're all still in the fifth grade or sixth grade or something, and it really makes you wonder where we are in this society when half the people really can't listen to the most minor criticism. And when we started this project, Scott, this podcast thing, and I started trying to build this Foggy Bottom Line brand in a more sort of focused way than I have in the past, I expected some criticism, right? In fact, I asked for it. I tell anyone that I talk to who has seen this, let me know what you think. What about the production values, the sound, the videos? What are we talking about? Anything interesting, or are we saying anything interesting about what we're talking about? And I get some good, honest feedback from people I know and from liberals. But the only thing I'm hearing from the other side, from the right side, from the MAGA side, is invective and insults, and no kind of pushback on the actual analysis or the facts,
Right.
because they can't. Right? I mean, are you seeing the same thing in the campaign?
Yeah, definitely in the campaign. There's no substantive disagreement with the positions or points that I make in my advertising and my social media, but there's immediate name calling and
Right.
invective, uh, and just really ugly, threatening, intentionally threatening kind of comments.
Right.
Which makes me think back, in Trump 1.0, back in 2017, 2018, the way that Trump and the Republicans responded to criticism was what I call whataboutism. Well,
Yep.
what about Biden, or what about Hillary, or what about, what about this, what about that? So they didn't really defend their position. They just tried to say, well, you guys are just as guilty as we are.
Right.
So by
Right.
invoking the whataboutism. But in 2.0, you haven't heard any whataboutism. It's just all ugly in your face name calling.
Right.
There's not even an attempt that I've seen as I've engaged with people and been out on the campaign trail. So I've talked to a lot of different people representing different points of view. Anyone who disagrees with me has not been able to have a coherent conversation without almost immediately getting into name calling and insults.
Yeah, and it's almost like, I mean, I don't, it's hard to characterize, because it really boils down to, I know I know I am, but what are you, kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
again, it's middle school level stuff, right? And there's no challenging of facts. There's no discussion of policy of any kind. There's no, this whole thing with the tearing down part of the White House to build that ballroom, which started yesterday, I think.
Right.
Um, and when that subject comes up, they miss the point completely that it's not about who's paying for the ballroom. It's about destroying this historic building just to satisfy, this narcissistic president's ego,
Well,
right?
it's not just destroying the building, it's doing it in a way that's against the law and it's
Right, that too.
disrespectful to our heritage, to the nation, and to us as Americans not to be consulted or informed as to what the plan or intention is. But I've been thinking about why do the Republicans or the right or conservatives, however you want to characterize them, why are they responding this way to complaints or protests from the left? And really, the only thing I can think of is we live in two parallel realities with different facts and different assumptions, and we're totally oblivious to what the other side is hearing. So we on the left take for granted certain things such as givens and common sense that don't justify or require any kind of explanation. Uh, uh, but the folks on the right don't see those things the same way. And they have
Right.
their own set of assumptions and their own set of facts and their own sets of realities that we never see or hear if we don't, if we're not in their echo chamber.
Right.
So we're really dealing with two parallel realities that are very dissimilar in terms of what is true and what's factual.
Yeah, absolutely true. And this is really the key problem of our time is that the rise of right wing media and the shift, I think, in the media away from basically a small number of platforms that everyone pretty much saw, right? When you had three networks or four, and the nightly news or the morning news shows is where you got your news. The local stations focused on local stuff, and of course, if it bleeds, it leads on the local news, right? But they weren't they hadn't yet been captured by these large conservative conglomerates that force feed a certain message. Um, and then right wing radio came along. The fairness doctrine was ended. Fox News, and now the streaming stuff and the podcasts, right? And the social media landscape today has fragmented so much that if all you watch is Newsmax and One American News Network and Fox, then, or you look at Breitbart on the web, you're going to believe things that simply aren't true. Now, it's also, I think, fair to say that if you never look at any of that, if you only focus on, what the Nation magazine, which is very, very liberal, and some other, platforms that are super liberal on the very far left, Daily Kos might be one, then you might also believe some things that simply aren't true, right?
Right.
But the problem is we don't have this common baseline understanding of what the world really looks like. And so, and you can actually see a lot of this. I know you're on LinkedIn, and you see a lot of this on LinkedIn if the algorithm is treating you to it, of all places. I mean, I didn't expect, honestly, to see this on LinkedIn, but a lot of this fake stuff, basically lies, is all over LinkedIn. And let me tell you, folks, the idea that 7 million people were paid to protest on Saturday is ridiculous on its face.
Right.
I mean, it's just ridiculous on its face. And to start with, the sheer cost of that, right? Um, the sheer cost of organizing those payments, right? I mean, you got to get 7 million Social Security numbers. You got to do 7 million 1099s or 7 million W-2s or whatever you're doing. And even if it's under the table, how do you make sure everybody gets paid? Right.
If it's above the table, there's going to be a huge paper trail.
Right.
to document that it happened. If it's under the table, can you imagine the stack of $20 bills that it would take to pay everybody
Right.
for being there? It's again, it's just crazy, ridiculous on its face.
It's silly on its face. I once had a professor, Scott, who he was fond of mocking conspiracy theorists when he said he would say the conspiracy is only now so big that we can see it, and he would mock them by pointing out that if the conspiracy has more than three people, sooner or later one of them is going to talk.
Right.
Right? They're going to brag in a bar. They're going to brag to a woman or a man, a lover. They're going to brag to a family member. They're going to talk. They're going to get mad at the other players in the conspiracy
Right.
and say something. So if that was really happening, and the size of an organization needed to pay 7 million people to show up in a certain place at a certain time, it would be so big that there's no universe where none of those people talk, where none of those organizations are infiltrated, right? And I saw one guy said, well, if you think we're all being paid, why don't you show up and get your check and then you can prove it?
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Yeah, but that brings up something I wanted to talk about. We've identified this issue that we have these different realities, and I don't really know how to solve that, what the solution is. But there's a couple things that, as we think about solutions, that I think we can keep in mind or be aware of. And you pointed out that one of them is the algorithms. The algorithms that distribute information to us serve up different information to you than what they do to me.
Right.
And different information to me than what they do to my extended family member. And we can't get away from that. So there's a third party who's curating the information that we get, and we have very little control over that.
Right.
I kind of knew that was a problem, just kind of rationally, but I really got that recently brought home in reality with the feed coming into the campaign Facebook page.
Right.
Because of all the people we've been reaching out to and engaging with, it's changed the algorithm. And I'm seeing stuff now come through from the right-wing media that I've never seen before.
Right.
And the things that they say and the assertions that they make are so alien and to me just wrong that it's shocking. It's shocking that people would even believe it. It's like it's a satire. But then I remember, no, really, this is what people are getting, and this is what people are trusting, and this is what the algorithms are serving up. So I don't know what the solution to that is. It's just the way that these systems that we've set up to communicate and share information are working. But on the other side, we have like the broadcast, let's just say cable news, for example. And we know we have different flavors of network news. But every time I try to take in and try to get the perspective and understanding of a right-leaning network, again, I'm kind of shocked because they often don't cover the topics that I'm interested in and want to see how they're processing it. They just ignore it. If they don't want to talk about it, they just ignore it. And their content is so narrow to their audience that there's nothing in there that's appealing or of interest or without offense to someone on the left.
Right.
And I'm sure that that the right thinks the same thing about MSNBC and CNN and left leaning. So in this media environment, there's very little overlap between the two to draw people in from the other side to spend some time and to get informed about other perspectives. So as we talk about how to fix this, I mean, those are just realities from where I sit that we need to be aware of. I have no solutions, however.
I think maybe sometime down the road, maybe we can try to find someone who's willing to come on the podcast and talk about this with a little more expertise on the algorithm and the problem there. At the end of the day, um, I think the problem is that the folks, the billionaires who own these platforms, Elon Musk and Twitter/X, they build the algorithm intentionally to create this division. And it's a topic for another day, except to the extent these rallies were in some sense about this, and that is that we're in an era now where, and we've sort of touched on this before, where you've got a very small number of people who own so much. They control a lot of wealth. They own a lot of these platforms. They own these media platforms, and they're sending us the message they want us to get, right?
Right. They're
Which
putting
is
us in
that,
our silos.
yeah, it keeps us in our silos. It keeps us working against each other. When I teach the government class and I talk about the black codes and the Jim Crow laws after the Civil War, um, the whole point was for the white landowners to pit poor whites against poor blacks, so they would fight each other and not go after the wealthy people. And they're still doing that. That's still what's
Right.
going on, right? And that's a lot of what these rallies is about, is to bring attention to this. And it's not, we called it No Kings, but it is partially about not letting Trump or Vance or anyone else become an authoritarian dictator. But it's also about not allowing this small number of oligarchs to basically cripple the state so that they can have more control over what we do and what we see, what we can afford to buy, what's available for us to buy, and those kinds of things. So these rallies are important for that. And just to circle back a little bit, we're at 30 minutes, but just to circle back and close out our discussion of the rallies, what do you think the value is of these?
Yeah, that's a great question. Coming back to what we've just been talking about and the information silos that we're in, I think the value is that these rallies leak out from the silos.
Yep.
They get out in the the public square so people can see them, and it's new information that they're not getting inside the silo, and it's a jailbreak, I guess. This was really eye-opening to a lot of people on the right, that there's so many people that are not happy with the way things are going right now, because they don't get that in their silo.
Right.
And I think that partially explains, why the right is so upset, or the powers that be on the right are so upset, because the value of these demonstrations are, we show that we are Americans, that we are regular people, that we're not criminals, we're not thugs, we're not terrorists. We are people who disagree with the direction that we're going. And disagreeing is okay. And we can disagree peacefully and agreeably. And I think that really undermines the message or the control that the oligarchs or the media oligarchy has with putting us in these silos with different information. So we're leaking out, we're breaking through.
I agree, and I think I would build on that and suggest to you that the one. I mean, there's a couple of things these rallies are good for. One is it sends a message to the administration and their allies and regular people who support them, that there's a non-trivial number of Americans who are not only unhappy, but they're unhappy enough to give up their Saturday afternoon to show that, right? I think the tone helps, because that trolling, mocking tone we talked about before is a good one to use, because it sort of tamps down the idea that these are terrorists, that we just want to burn buildings and riot. We want to deliver a message, but in a serious but sort of lighthearted tonal way, right? Um, I think it lets people know that they're not alone.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there who are very dissatisfied for a lot of reasons. Some of them possibly former Trump supporters who are wondering why the price of eggs is still going up,
Right.
right? And that kind of thing. And worried about their health care. I think health care is going to be a huge factor going down the road as the boomers age out, as you know, our generation sort of ages out, and these young people come up. And when the, a 22, when I was 22, I didn't care about healthcare. Didn't care. Didn't need it. Right. But once they get old enough to need it, they'll start caring about it more. So I think that's going to be a factor. And then finally, I'll just say that one of the responses I got when I posted a little short video on TikTok was, well, 7 million people showed up for that, but 77 million voted for Trump. Yeah, okay, but 76 million voted for Harris. Okay,
Right.
so that's an even split. But 10% of the people who showed up for Harris showed up in person on this for these rallies. And when you look at, just to use a local example, you look at Winsome Sears's campaign. She goes on a bus tour, nobody shows up. She shows up at a town to campaign, and you get 24 people. So that wasn't true when Youngkin was running. He got much bigger crowds. So I think something's going on here. I think the message is getting across. I think one way to break those silos, Scott, is to do things that the other side has to cover, right? And I think the lying and the propaganda will get you only so far,
Right.
because I think that, you know, when in the 30s, when Hitler could say anything you wanted and people would believe it, there was really no way to check. But now there's a lot of ways to check. And I think more and more people who aren't the hardcore true believer MAGAs will start to check things. They'll start to check some of the things they're seeing. And one of the things, if you want to lose someone's trust, get caught in a lie,
Right. Hey,
right?
Stan, there's one other really notable thing about these demonstrations that we need to point out before we wrap up. And that is, these demonstrations didn't happen in urban areas on the coast, on the East Coast
Oh,
and
yeah.
West Coast. They happened in rural areas. They happened in the heartland. They happened in flyover country. They happened everywhere.
Yeah.
So this again just shows that these people that are not happy with the direction we're going, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't categorize them or characterize them as establishment liberals or Ivy League whatever's. You know, they're just Americans.
Right.
They're Americans
Yeah.
from every
And
walk of life.
well, yeah, I was struck by the part where one of the biggest rallies was in Utah,
Yeah.
right? Which I would not have expected. There was a big rally in Montgomery, Alabama,
Right.
which I would not have expected. And I've been to Montgomery several times, and it's a really nice little town. There's a pretty good sized Air Force base there. But it's a really cool little town. Their minor league baseball team is called the Biscuits.
Right.
And I don't know where they got that, but
Yeah. So
but,
in our neighboring rural county of Louisa, that's very red, happens to be part of the district I'm running in.
right.
They got over 300 people at the courthouse for their No Kings rally. So that's just illustrative of that is some real Americans from every walk of life and every corner of the country that had the courage and the commitment to country, and then cared enough to get off their butts on a Saturday and to go out and show up.
Yeah, I think a lot of Americans are disgusted by what they're seeing, especially the ICE stuff. I think a lot of Americans are starting to be concerned when they see federal agents behaving that way with masks on. I think a lot of Trump supporters have started to realize that he's not fulfilling his campaign promises with respect to the cost of living, the cost of housing, the cost of food, those kinds of things. I think they're disillusioned, and I think the next one of these is going to be bigger. A lot of people came up to me as I walked around with this T-shirt on after I spoke and saying, "Hey, when's the next one?" Right? And I was thanking people for coming and saying, "Bring your friends next time." I think that you probably had another 7 million people who would have been there, but for some reason couldn't. Right? They had a family obligation. There's sickness in the family. There's, a big anniversary, 100th birthday for grandma, something
Or
like that.
Mike Johnson scared them away.
Yeah, or Mike Johnson scared them away. So I think that the next time this happens, it'll be even bigger because you'll have more disillusioned people and more people ready to stand up. To me, the big value of all these people showing up is that other like-minded folks who saw that on TV, next time they'll say, "I want to be in that party. I want to be at that party," and they'll come out. So I think this is gonna get bigger and bigger, and the organizers are gonna try to do that. So I guess we'll wrap it up. I think the first thing I would say to wrap this up is that if you're interested in the organizations that created these events, that run these, the No Kings is nokings.org. Indivisible is indivisible.org. The Williamsburg James City County Indivisible group is on Facebook, so you can find them on Facebook. Just Google this, and just search this on Facebook. You'll find them. They're pretty active. You can find us at www.foggybottomline.com. We're on Instagram and TikTok at Foggy Bottom Line, and we're on YouTube at Foggy Bottom Line Media, where you can see these podcasts and the short little videos we're doing. You can find Scott on his campaign website at scottk4va.com. That's Scott K, the number 4va.com. Scott, you're ramping up the woodshop videos, right?
Right. I got a couple more coming out before the election. People kind of like those. I have a lot of fun making them. And who knows, that might become a thing on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
But Stan, I think this has been a great conversation today, Stan.
I agree. It's an important one we need to have. This conversation's not over. This is like we talked about before. Donald Trump is trying to capture the power of all three branches of government, and he's doing a very good job of that. He's pushing that down the road. And if you don't think that's a good idea, generally speaking, whether it's your favorite guy, doing it or not, then it's time to speak up and say, wait a minute, slow down. Let's figure out who's doing this. And we haven't even touched on the part where Mike Johnson has all but closed the House of Representatives down. Right. Which means your government doesn't really exist. The House of Representatives is the people's branch. That's who's supposed to be taking care of you and me, whether we're Trump supporters or not. So that's maybe a topic for next week or for a short video.
Yeah, for another time.
Yeah.
So this has been a great episode about the Snowflake King here.
Yeah, right. I can't believe that video. That's just, folks, if you haven't seen that, just go on your web, on the web, Google Trump AI video
Fighter jet.
King jet, something, and it'll pop up, and it is all kinds of disgusting on all kinds of levels, and you'll see what I
funny,
mean.
But not funny at the same time.
It's just disgusting. The whole thing is just disgusting. He hates America. He hates Americans. He's in it for himself. We all know that. So even Trumpers know that, I think, at this point. So last word, Scott?
Onward and upward. It's encouraging to see people waking up. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on the campaign. People who are starting to pay attention to things now. We can only hope that that trend continues, and we're just doing our small part to pull that along.
No, well, and I appreciate your your help and your support and your participation on this project. I think with the two of us, we have some good conversations, and hopefully we're sparking some thinking among listeners and watchers and viewers to get people thinking about what's going on. The critical thinking piece that's so important when you're watching these media, whether it's right or left. Think about it, test it, go and look it up, make sure they're telling you the truth, because about 80% of the time they're not. Whether that's the algorithm's fault is something for another day. But take care, Scott. Good talk again. Folks, we'll try again next week and look for some shorts. Keep an eye on us on Facebook and on the web at foggybottomline.com. Scott, take care, sir.
Carry on.
Carry on.